Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the continuation of the discussion on the Yoga Sutras. This meeting will be recorded and will be posted on YouTube. If you have missed any of the previous discussions, you may find it on YouTube. Also, if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask. Please use the raise hand feature of Zoom in order to maintain the queue. Also, if you are not speaking, please mute yourselves in order to minimize the disturbances. Thank you.
Recording in progress.
Good evening, welcome everyone. Yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidyagena yopakurotam pravaram muninam patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi stuve patanjalim vyasam shankaram cha munitrayam kartrasutrasya bhashyasya kramavivaranasya cha. We were discussing the 34th sutra in the last session, and also we just introduced briefly the 35th one. The 34th sutra directly discusses the practice of pranayama or controlling the breath. Prachardana vidharanabhyam va pranasya. As I mentioned earlier, all these sutras are introduced as different means for acquiring this manasa, chittasya, sthiti. That's what Vyasa says, to acquire a level of a state of stability, tranquility and peace. Many of these practices will be useful. We already finished the 34th sutra. The 35th one is very important because the sutra actually discusses certain important teachings which is directly related to sthiti nibandhini is called. Vishayavati va pravrtti utpanna manasaha sthiti nibandhini. The pravrtti utpanna manasa sthiti nibandhini. This part of the sutra will be added to the coming sutras. So that is an important part of this part of the text. Certain parts or a fraction of the previous sutras should be added to the succeeding one. Vyasa makes that very clear in his bhashya to make the sense and the meaning complete. So the 35th sutra deals with what we may call Vishayavati Sampat, which is the pravrtti itself. There are certain words here, pravrtti. Pravrtti actually means a kind of sattvic vritti. Vritti is a state of our mind. When that vritti becomes sattvic, something that gives us peace of mind and stability, then it is called pravritti. So, prakrishtaha vritti is pravritti. That's a meaning. It's a technical term used in the Yoga Sutra literature. In fact, the meaning is different in Vedanta. In Vedanta, pravritti means entirely different. This is an important area which we should specially keep in mind. In Indian philosophical systems, one term, one word may have a well-defined, well-structured meaning and definition in one system of philosophy. And the same word can have a different meaning in the context of another system of philosophy. Is more or less true in every system of philosophy. The words that you use in IT, for example, delete and things like that, it may have a different connotation in the normal literature vocabulary. So that more or less is true in ancient Indian philosophical systems. So pravrtti here means prakashana vritti. I mean vritti, as we know, vritti is a means, an instrument by which we come to know something. Buddhi vritti. When the intellect cognizes something, the intellect produces a vritti related to something which is cognized, which is understood. So here it is a special kind of vritti. It is called prakrishta vritti. So it is called pravrtti. It is a technical yogic term which means a subtle sattvic vritti through which some higher spiritual experiences are obtained. So only through that vritti you can get an experience. So in the coming sutras you find, of course in this sutra and also next sutra, Patanjali discusses various types of extra sensory experiences, transcendental experiences. And he makes a very interesting claim in his bhashya that Vyasa says, without some kind of an extra sensory, what do you normally call supernatural, is a very unhelpful term. Without that kind of an experience, actually you cannot have any conviction in spiritual ideas. That is the real problem. In fact, that is the very purpose. You see, when you drink milk, you get nourishment. It is obvious. So there is an action taking place and there is a result that is very obvious to us, which can verify. But here, how do you verify? There is no obvious means of verification. So then, suppose through these spiritual practices, you get some, let us say, some kind of a vision, some kind of not hallucination, some kind of a supra-sensory experience, then you get the feeling, well, after all, it is not just words. There is something in that. That's what you... In fact, when you get that experience, then the borderline skepticism is removed. Till that moment, you cannot really believe in God. It's a fact. You cannot really believe in anything that you cannot actually verify in the laboratory of science. There's a very psychological principle which Vyasa actually talks about. So, in this sutra, Vyasa is going to speak about different supra-sensory experiences, a kind of extra sensory perception which arises, and then also you really feel a kind of inner stability and freedom. Now here something very interesting to note. How do you verify that it is something genuine or it is some kind of a hallucination? Delusions, false thoughts, false ideas. People sometimes, delusions of grandeur. You feel you are Napoleon, or you are Jesus Christ, or you are Buddha, or Julius Caesar. You find, it's kind of delusions can be there. So grandeur, delusions of grandeur. People feel that way. Now, how do you really distinguish a genuine spiritual yogic transcendental experience from something that is absolute rubbish? There is a way, very simple way. Manasaha sthiti nibandhini. That is the sutra says. Your mind becomes calm and quiet, tranquil, peace, stable. Because you got inspiration, you don't go and fight with people. Then that's not that kind of inspiration is not something very desirable. If you claim that you had a vision of some god or somebody and then you get angry with other people, that is just the opposite of it. Sthiti nibandhini means when the mind becomes calm and quiet and tranquil, which gives you an inner stability, tranquility, peace of mind, then that experience is a spiritual experience. If it creates excitement, if it creates restlessness, if it creates a kind of the opposite of self-restraint, then it is not genuine, it is not real spiritual experience. This is a very important point to remember. That's why in this sutra there is one important term which is repeated, pravrtti utpanna manasasthiti nibandhini. This part of the sutra will be added to the next sutra also. So what is this pravrtti? When this pravrtti, this extra sensory perception arises, that becomes a cause of mental steadiness and peace and tranquility. We should remember, real spiritual experience makes you or gives you the power to do certain great and good things, really speaking. Unselfishness, total dedication to a noble cause, to something that brings peace and happiness for others. All these great qualities can be the result of genuine spiritual inspiration. The opposite, it is some kind of manic excitement or something that also can happen. Or, as delusions of grandeur also can produce excitement. And you feel you are inspired, you feel you have a mission. What's a mission? That if that mission involves creating problems for others, that there is nothing spiritual, there is no spiritual content in that. It's a problem for you actually, it's a problem for others. That is why this term is pravrtti utpanna manasa sthiti nibandhini. That's the idea behind. In fact, the next sutra is much more profound and we'll discuss with Vyasa's commentary, of course. So, again, this is a kind of dharana. So, dharana, dhyanam, samadhi. This is the sixth state. So, before dharana, one should be fully established in yama niyamas, which guarantees that this experience is based on genuine inner purity. Because you have practiced yamas and niyamas, ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, parigraha, shauja, santosha, tapasu, adhyaya, isakpanithana. Non-violence, truthfulness, total freedom from greed or possessiveness, purity of life, contentment, inner joy, all these great qualities. And then a complete resignation to God, higher spiritual. So that God idea also needs maybe some interpretation. An idea of a God that gives you inner peace and tranquility, and which also enables you to convey the same qualities to others. Those who come in contact with you should get from you something positive. That is the real source of inspiration. Everything else is the opposite of inspiration. Anyway, it may be excitement, it could be some kind of delusions of grandeur. So now this is one important point to remember. So you can find this pravrtti is divided or analyzed very, very scientifically by Patanjali. One is Vishayavadi Samvat, ability to understand things. So when you do dharana, concentration on the tip of the tongue, or maybe on some other parts of the system, then you are able to experience some auspicious smell, divine vision and things like that. That is some kind of extra sensory perception. The other one is a higher kind of sattvic experience. We see Vishoka Jyotishmadi, which is the result of concentrating on mind, which is much superior. So, Va Vishoka Jyotishmadi Pravrtti Utpanna Manasasthiti Nibandhini is twice mentioned here. I would like to read, of course, Vyasa's commentary, and this portion, very, very famous commentary is there. Vyasa says, Nasigagre dharayataha asya va divya gandha sambit sa gandha pravrittihi jihvagre divya las sambit taluni rupa sambit jihva madhye sparsha sambit jihva mule shabda sambit ittedaha. That means Vyasa says, so, this subtle pravrtti, this supra-sensory perception of smell which a person may get when he concentrates, when he does dharana on the tip of the nose, a kind of smell perception, then again through concentration on the tip of the tongue, which gives you a kind of divine taste. In this context, we should remember that taste or that smell has nothing to do with our sensory organs. You don't get that smell through your nostrils and you don't get that taste through your tongue. It is a kind of inner, again suprasensory, where senses are not directly involved. Pravrittasya utpannas chittam sthido nibadhanti samsayam vidhamanti samadhi prajnayam cha dwari bhavanti iti. That is a famous oft-quoted statement from Vyasa Bhashya. What it means is, the awakening of these higher perceptions. There is no real earthly benefit by getting this kind of suprasensory smell or taste or anything like that. But it serves one great purpose. What's the purpose? You get that full conviction that these great spiritual disciplines that you practice, yamas and niyamas, non-violence, truthfulness, all these, do have a real value and utility and a cognizable empirical value. Why? Because you have practiced these great moral, ethical, spiritual values, yamas and niyamas. As a result of these, you feel a kind of experience which you cannot really give to another person the way you can give an incense stick. Anyone can have it, because that experience comes through the sense of smell. Or eat a wonderful food, that taste comes through the sense of taste. But here, these perceptions, they are coming from another source, not from the sensory perception, sensory experience. Therefore, it stabilizes your mind. It gives your mind a kind of stability. Why? Because there's a borderline skepticism. You go on praying, you go on meditating, you go on reading books, still there's a nagging doubt. After all, is there anything in this? We are not fully convinced. In fact, it's very difficult to cross that border, the borderline skepticism. From that borderline skepticism, any moment you can fall back. That is a problem. But the moment you get some kind of an experience, then nobody can really shake your conviction in the reality of spiritual values that you are practicing. That's why Vyasa says, Pravrittasya utpannas chittam sthido nibadhanti samsayam vidhamanti. So he says, he removes all doubts. Otherwise, how do you remove doubts? Everything else you can verify. If you buy something from Trader Joe's, you can taste it and test it. Or if it's an intellectual idea which doesn't have anything to do with our inner experience, you don't really worry about it. Another intellectual idea can negate it. One intellectual idea, which is purely an intellectual idea, can be negated by another intellectual idea. Logic can work both ways. But experience, if an experience is experienced. If something is really experienced in our own real life, then the conviction behind that experience cannot be disputed. Somebody may tell you God is unreal, there is no point in meditating or anything. But if you have a little bit of experience, if you are feeling inner poise and tranquility by your own practice, then you may, let him say whatever he wants, you won't bother. Otherwise, if it is just an intellectual idea, another person can shake your conviction, can create doubt, skepticism in your mind. That's why Vyasa says, Nibadhranti samsayam vidhamanti samadhi prajnayam cha dwari bhavanti iti. Not only that, these experiences become a kind of gateway, a door through which you go to higher experiences. But again, we should remember, these experiences, if people try to get without yamas and niyamas, then it can lead to false perceptions, hallucinations, and many other problems. It can unsettle our mind. It's a very important point to remember. People can get excitement if they practice a lot of pranayama and concentration without getting some discipline, without following some discipline like yamas and niyamas. This is an important point, because concentration and pranayama generate energy and heat within the body. Now, that energy should be properly utilized. It should be restrained. It should be properly handled. How do we do that? Through yamas and niyamas. If a person practices the dharana, means kind of, it doesn't really become dharana, something which he claims to be dharana, higher concentration. Without yamas and niyamas, then what happens? Some of our intellectual faculties get sharpened, and some of our faculties become stronger, and that development can land us in trouble. That is why yamas and niyamas are very, very much emphasized in all these practices, especially in dharana. We are now discussing different effects of dharana. Next sutra, of course. Here are a few important statements from Vyasa. It comes, Vyasa makes it very clear that in this extrasensory perception, indriyas are, as I mentioned, never involved. And he says the vishayavati, vishayas are shabda, sparsha, rupa, rasa and gandha. Shabda means, what you hear. Sparsha, tvagindriya, sense of touch. Rupa, what you see, the visual. Rasa, what you taste. And gandha, what you smell. All these one may get, but then those experiences, if they come to a person who is already well established in yamas and niyamas, then those experiences will make you calm and quiet. It doesn't mean that you become inactive, you become dull or insensitive. The point is, you have got a glimpse of some higher reality, higher possibility, higher spiritual possibility. You are, from a distance, you are seeing maybe the top of a mountain. So you know there is a mountain maybe several thousand miles away, but there is a mountain. Of course, you have to go there, you have to reach, you have to travel a long distance. But if you don't see the top of the mountain from anywhere, you are not very sure there is a real mountain. Until one gets some kind of an experience, that nagging skepticism will remain. That's why it is very, very important for one to wait and practice. And of course, modern writers, sometimes they say, the clairvoyance and clairaudience belong to this category actually. These experiences are to be distinguished from true spiritual experience. Because that's not, they are not really something that leads to samadhi prajna, but they are the byproducts. We start a factory not to get byproducts, but products. Byproducts are part of the production process, which we may use or we may throw away. But in yoga structure, it is not something that you give a lot of importance to. You don't give much importance to the byproducts. So all these are byproducts. They are not the main products. The main purpose is the samadhi prajna. In your journey, in your evolution towards that experience, the higher spiritual experience, many of these extra sensory perceptions and experiences may happen, but they are only a pointer. They give a conviction that there is something really happening, and you have really started walking, you have started moving, you have started evolving, you have started your journey in spiritual life. The next sutra is Vishokava Jyotishmati. This is the next sutra. Vishokava Jyotishmati. So in the 35th sutra, we are discussing Vishayavadi Samvit. Vishayavadi Samvit means something related to these, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, by different kinds of Dharana, as we mentioned. See, Vyasa says, for example, the Nasigagre Dharayataka Asyava Divya Gandha Samvit Sa Gandha Pravrtti, etc. If you meditate on the tip of the nose, you get some kind of a extra sensory smell and so on. These are the topics discussed in the 35th sutra. In the 36th sutra, a higher level of yogic experience is mentioned. That is Buddhi Samvit and Asmita Samvit. First, Buddhi Samvit. Our intellect becomes pure, purity, sattvic. Our antakarana, mind, intellect, memory system and ego system, to call antakarana, or sometimes in a general term we may call it the mental system, the mind or intellect. They become pure. So Buddhi Samvit. The other one is Asmita Samvit. You get a feeling of total identity with the entire cosmos. So here Vyasa's commentary bhashyam, pravrtti ruppanna manasasthiti nibandhini iti anuvartate. So this part of one part of the sutra should be taken from previous sutra. What is that part of the sutra? Pravrtti ruppanna manasasthiti nibandhini. This part of the sutra, which comes in the 35th, it's actually part of the 35th sutra. That sutra should be added to the 36th one. So Vishoka va Jyotishmati is the sutra given here. Along with that, you should add Pravritti Ruppanna Manasasthiti Nibandhini. That part of the sutra from previous one, that is 35th sutra, should be incorporated to this sutra. This is Anuvartanam. So normal, it's a very important process and a most essential, indispensable process in interpreting Vyakarana Sutras, Panini's Ashtadhyaya Sutras, but there are other sutra literature also where this is going to be taken, to be applied. Now Vyasa says, Hridaya Pundarike Dharayatu Ya Buddhi Sambit Buddhi Sattvam Hi Bhasuram Akashakalpam Tatra Sthiti Vaisaradyat Pravrittihi Surya Indu Griha Mani Prabharupakarena Vikalpate Tada Asmitayam Samapannam Chittam Nistaranga Mahodhati Kalpam Shantam Anantam Asmita Matram Bhavati. You can actually, if you want an explanation why certain spiritual teachers are able to raise the consciousness of others in a very positive manner. We may call it miracle. Normally, miracle is a word that is used in many mystical Puranic literature. But it's not a miracle actually. Yoga system uses pure psychology and pure psychic science, mental science, to explain what we normally call miracles. Miracles, you can say, is God's interference or God's intervention. That is the classical definition. It is true in a very broad sense, of course, because when you do Ishvara Pranidhana, as a result of this Sthiti Nibandhini, this mental stability and mental tranquility, all can happen. But yoga system analyzes the whole process in a very scientific manner. So, Hridaya Pundariki Dharayata, somebody who meditates or who concentrates on Hridaya Pundarika, I mean kind of cosmic intellect. Not your own intellect, our own intellect, but let's say our intellect is a fraction of cosmic intellects. With this full conviction, you meditate on that cosmic intellect. Then what happens? Buddhism with Buddhisattvam. Then our buddhi becomes resplendent and it becomes akashakalpa, means infinite without a boundary, eternal, infinite. Then it becomes very broad, very pure. It gets freed from all inhibitions and wrong ideas. That's why, Buddhism with means purity of our whole mental system. So, real dharana, real concentration done by a person who has already established himself in yamas and niyamas, who is leading a pure life, who is having the inner contentment, is totally unselfish. Such a person's mind automatically becomes pure. It doesn't mean that he is able to please everyone or he will try to please everyone. So, remember, deliberate attempt to please somebody is the proof of the opposite of this. Remember. That is an important point to remember. If somebody deliberately tries to please you, he is not a yogi. Certainly he is not a yogi, he may be anything else. Maybe the opposite of yogi. But this is an internal spiritual journey. As a result of this, our mind becomes pure. And our mind becomes, that's why it said, Bhaswaram, it means resplendent. It is effulgent. And Akashakalpam means just like as broad, as infinite as the sky. Tatra sthiti vaisharadyad. So, first of all, there is total stability and there is also vaisharadyam. Vaisharadyam, it could mean expertise, efficiency. Here it means purity. So, the mind and intellect becomes so pure and so stable. Pravrtti, again the prakrishta vritti means that sattvic vritti, the sattvic the ability to understand, recognize and identify in a sattvic manner. Surya Indu Graha Mani Prabha Rupakarena Vikalpate. So what happens, Then one's intellect, buddhi, becomes effulgent like Surya, means sun, Indu means moon, Manikalpa means, the planet, or as a luminous, brilliant jewel. I mean, a kind of inner purity, inner tranquility, inner effulgence. This next part of the Bhashya is very important. Tatha asmidayam samapannam chittam nistaranga mahodhati kalpam shantam anantam asmida matram bhavati. So, due to this domination of Sattva-guna, all shoka, all sorrow goes away. It's called Vishoka. And one becomes radiant, stability of mind, and also purity of mind can be illumination, the illuminating efficiency of the mind can be achieved. But more important that there is a Tata Asmidayam Samapannam. Again, Asmida here means, normally Asmida means Asmi, Aham Asmi. I am. But here Asmida means cosmic ego, not individual ego. So when a spiritual seeker concentrates on cosmic mind, then he is able to connect with the entire humanity. Well, to give an example, of course, this could be explained in it, but there is a yogic way of explaining. Swami Vivekananda's Chicago address. Now, Vivekananda was an unknown person, and he came. His dress was totally different. He looked different when he came in 1893, and he didn't have a letter of recognition or letter of introduction. He got something from a great well-known professor, but somehow he lost it, and he was given a chance to speak in the Parliament of Religion. And Vivekananda's Chicago address, actually, if you do it in the normal pace, it may last around 8 minutes, maybe 6 minutes, 7 minutes, the first Chicago address. Now that Chicago address had a tremendous impact on the listeners. Now here, of course, there is a yoga way of explaining this. Vivekananda, if you read this Chicago address, he doesn't speak about any particular religion. He speaks about the universal spiritual aspiration of humanity. That's the intellectual content. But as a practitioner of yoga, it may be that he had meditated upon the cosmic mind. Because when you Tata Asmidayam Samapannam Chittam, what happens, when you meditate on the whole humanity as one cosmic entity, you feel a kind of affinity and identity with the entire humanity. When you feel strongly within you, it's not an intellectual conviction, but a real feeling within, then it connects with the audience. It will have an impact, because this impact goes beyond the power of elocution or oratory or the importance of the personality. It has got a different dimension. Now, how do we connect this to some kind of a spiritual experience? Because when you listen to somebody and there is no entertainment, of course, there is nothing comic about it. When you listen to somebody and after listening to him, you feel that your own awareness, your own spiritual awareness, your own consciousness have taken a leap forward, then it is something positive. It is a positive impact. This could happen to many people, and it will have a lasting effect very often. How we judge it from normal so-called influence? There are many entertainers, many people who make millions of dollars by wonderful entertainment. They please many people. But those entertainments may not have a lasting spiritual impact on our personality. And it is not a transformative impact. There may be an entertaining effect, no doubt. Absolutely no doubt. I mean, entertainment means for a few minutes, for a few hours, you may be able to forget some of your temporary problems and worry. That's called entertainment, can be defined. But here, this is true of any great literature. Of course, when you listen to a person, it may be more effective. So it's a positive, a spiritual transformation. It is lasting, relatively, of course. How lasting the impact, if it depends upon the receiver, to what extent the person who received a spiritual message was ready and fit to imbibe that spiritual message. So that's why Tatha asmidayam samapannam chittam nistaranga mahodhadikalpam shantam. When a person meditates on this cosmic mind, the samapannam, he becomes identified with this cosmic ego, cosmic mind. What happens? His mind becomes nistaranga mahodhadikalpam. Nistaranga actually means without it, taranga means waves. Can you, mahodhadi means a huge, big ocean. An ocean without any waves means the very embodiment of purity and tranquility and peace. An ocean which is devoid of any wave, any disturbance, totally calm and quiet and tranquil, embodiment of tranquility, peace and stability. That's why Vyasa says, nistaranga mahodhadikalpam, shantam, always calm and quiet and tranquil. Anantam, asmita matram bhavati. So, it gets completely absorbed and identified with this cosmic ego. Cosmic ego here should be understood, the cosmic mind, the cosmic intellect. So, that's how a spiritual person or spiritual ideas get connected. So how do we connect with these ideas? To the extent that our own mind becomes pure, it is able to connect with spiritual ideas, with pure ideas. What we have in our mind is seeks outside. If there are wonderful things in our mind, that mind will be seeking similar things from outside. If there are things which are not so wonderful, then that mind will go about seeking, choosing things which may not be so very good outside. So, when this happens, then Vishoka, one becomes totally free from sorrow. And Jyotismati becomes effulgent, becomes pure. That light of purity and the state of total freedom from any grief or any sorrow, any feeling of depravity or grief or anything. And then what happens? One becomes free from all negativity. So first, there is negativity, then there is a solution to this through increasing positivity, and then we should be able to go beyond both when we become fully established in positivity. So that's why Patanjali makes this point. So elaborate. Vyasa also gives a lot of additional ideas here. Of course, there are other important subjects also. The next sutra is Vitaraga Vishayam Va Chittam. Another. Again, we have to remember, we have to, this is also an attempt to give another option for acquiring mental stability and tranquility. How do we do? When we meditate on a mind which is totally free from raga. It's called vidaraga, desire. When we can meditate on the mind of a person which is free, that mind is free from all desires, then that helps us to get freedom from desire. So, this particular sutra comes after Vyasa had already established his idea of Vishoka Jyotishmati. After this we can have interaction. If we don't have interaction, I will continue. Of course, the commentators have different views on this. Vidaraga Parityukta Vishayabhilasha Vyasa Sukadeha Yesham Yet Chittam Tadeva Visheha Alampanam Yesya Tad Vidaraga Vishayam Yadhoktam Chittam Vidaraga Vishayam Chittam. Some commentators give this interesting explanation. How do we meditate? So, in ancient Hindu mythology, there were certain great sages and saints who were well known for their total freedom from desire. They were examples of sacrifice, spiritual illumination, and unselfishness. So, Vidaraga Parityukta, Vishayabhilasha, Yesham Yachittam, Tadeva Vishayam Alambanam. So, one should always meditate. One should always focus on the personalities and their mental and their minds and ideas, which teaches the value of renouncing, the importance of renouncing desire. How do we get the conviction? How do we get an idea of giving up desire? So we should remember this sutra requires some explanation to connect it to modern times and modern context. Can we live without a desire? Is it really possible for anyone to live without desire? The question may actually arise. It is not possible. But when a spiritual seeker practices yamas and niyamas, what happens is, first of all, he develops a higher desire to practice yoga, to practice meditation and all that. And as he evolves, as he progresses through practice of these yamas and niyamas, he develops a sublime desire. And that higher desire to progress in spiritual life, to practice some higher ideas, will enable him eventually to become totally free from desire. So nobody can really become free from desire by taking it as a choice. First, we must give a promotion to our normal desires. We must have a desire for something sublime, something noble, something spiritual. That strong desire for practicing spirituality will help us to get rid of undesirable desires, undesirable ideas. So that's how we slowly imbibe a lot of positive ideas to begin with. And as we develop a higher desire, as we direct our energies in the direction of achieving that higher goal, what happens? All negativities, all negative or wrong desires slowly slip away, they decrease, they disappear. And then we have only one higher desire. When we are established in this higher desire, then that higher desire will eventually disappear. We do not have to give it up, it will eventually disappear. This is one important principle. As a tool for this, the commentators say we should think of the teachings of Vyasa, Shuka. These are the names of Vyasa, was a great sage. Actually, today I give a talk on Vyasa's story in one of our retreats in the morning, 9:30, which may come in YouTube. Vyasa was maybe arguably the greatest author, the greatest philosopher of his times. If you have got a big library in your room, you can fill all those bookshelves with books written by Vyasa. All the 18 Upapuranas, 18 Mahapuranas, each of them as big as chambers of Webster's dictionary, 36 huge volumes, plus for Veda, the commentaries. Practically there was nothing that Vyasa did not know, there was nothing that he did not write about. And he was the son of Shuka, one of the greatest sages of Vedanta tradition. But this Vyasa was not happy. He was in a state of depression. And one day he was sitting on the bank of river Saraswati in a pensive mood. At that time, another sage came, and Narada. And Narada asked him what's the matter. And Vyasa said, look here, I have achieved all this. You can imagine the most accomplished author, the greatest philosopher, the most learned man of his times and his day, and the most unhappy person. And there was nothing wrong with him. So Narada asked him, what's the matter? Vyasa said, well, I feel I did not do something that is really important. I wrote the Mahabharata, of course. It's the biggest book, more than 100,000 verses. And 4 Vedas, he himself taught to 4 of his disciples, Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharvaveda. And 18 Mahapuranas, 18 Upapuranas, Vyasa Smriti, and the Bhagavad Gita itself is a small fraction of Mahabharata. So practically there was nothing that Vyasa did not know, that he would have decided for. And he was unhappy. Vyasa said, I did not do something that's really worthwhile. I did not write anything that will help people to know what they should do to achieve their spiritual goal. I did not write about God and his incarnations, Vishnu and his 10 incarnations. Then Narada told, you are right, you write it. So Narada asked him to write, and according Narada taught him Bhagavata. And Vyasa wrote that famous book, Bhagavata Purana, 18,000 verses, 12 sections, 335 chapters, deal with some of the most sublime poetry, the greatest and most profound devotional work in Hindu Vedantic tradition. Now, and the moment Vyasa finished, when he came to the end of the last section, the last chapter of the 13th chapter of the 12th skandha, when he reached the 19th sloka perhaps, he concluded Satyam Param Dhimahi. I meditate on that supreme truth, which is effulgent truth. With that he completed. There are one or two slokas which actually which actually praise spiritual practices like taking the name of God and so on. Vyasa got peace of mind. So when he wrote something that will help others spiritually in their own spiritual life, he wrote a book that becomes a kind of royal highway that will take you to your spiritual home, your spiritual realization. Vyasa himself became peaceful, contented, happy. That's what happens. So here Patanjali says he meditated the mind of a man like Vyasa. After writing Bhagavata Purana, he became the embodiment of tranquility, peace and yogic wisdom. And his son, Shuka. So that's why the commentator says, Vyasa Shuka Deha Yesham Chi Yachittam Tadeva Vishyam. If you can think of some great persons whom you consider to be unselfish, pure, doing good for others, examples, that itself becomes a kind of object for practicing dharana. That is the essence of this Vidaraga Vishayam Va Chittam. The mind which has given up hankering for objects, that is called Vidaraga. Vidaraga means a person who is not worried about anything. He may do a lot. Remember, Vidaraga doesn't mean somebody who is sitting quiet doing nothing. That's an important point, remember. A person who is doing nothing is not necessarily free from desire. He may have much more desire than the most active person in the world. So, how do we know a person is actually free from desire? He is doing so much, but doesn't want anything for himself. Then only you know that he is free from desire. If he is sitting quiet somewhere, there is no whether he is actually a great sage, or maybe the opposite of it. He may be all burning. There's a story in Pachitantra goes. A tiny child was walking through markets, maybe think of, let us say, centuries back in the city of Kashi, the holy city. There are many monkeys. Now if you go to some of these places, you can monkeys. So a tiny child was holding some fruit in his hand, going with his father to the market, and a monkey was sitting there, calm and quiet. The child thought, oh, this monkey is so disciplined, calm and quiet, without a movement, sitting. And he exclaimed to his father, oh father, the monkey is sitting so calm and quiet and tranquil. Then father told him, the little boy, you wait. And in one instant, the monkey jumped and took away the fruit from his hands. So the monkey was meditating on the fruit that the child was holding in his hands, because he needs a lot of focus to jump and grab it and take away. Now, that could be the nature of a very inactive person. So you know a person to be totally free from desire only when you find him active. At the same time, he doesn't want anything for himself. Then he is free from desire. So if you can think of, visualize such a person and his mind, that is also one way to acquire mental stability, tranquility and peace. We will continue the discussion of the 37th Sutra in the coming version. Thank you. Namaskar. Now we can have interaction. Yeah. Most welcome.
Question.
Yeah.
So when you concentrate, it says that you can get a feeling of smell or taste.
Yeah.
And if you get it, then you are sure that it works. And then you are completely committed to your spiritual life. There is no doubt about it.
Yeah. I will try to explain this. You are right.
Now, how long does it take to feel that?
Yeah. If you are struggling to get that divine taste, you will not get it. If you are concentrating, practicing this spiritual disciplines with a view, I must get this divine taste or divine smell, you will not get it. Really, nobody opens a factory to produce byproducts. Byproducts, there will be a lot of trash also can come out of the factory, which you dump somewhere, which you trash can every Thursday, people will come and take away. But you don't really start a factory, invest money and get employees to create trash. This is only trash. See, byproduct, trash only. That's not the main product. It's only trash. It comes. So, what Patanjali means is, what normally happens, he is not recommending that we should strive to get this suprasensory experiences. Then we will never get it, because we won't be able to concentrate. We won't be able to practice real dharana if we have in our mind the desire to get this suprasensory experience. What Patanjali says is, when a person really starts practicing dharana, at one stage this could happen. Then normally what happens, any kind of skepticism, antarayas we discussed, vyadhis, dhyana, samshaya, the samshaya means doubt. Somehow you practice meditation every day, do japa every day. But if you get a lot of peace of mind, and then that is enough for stabilizing your mind, stabilizing your faith. This is very important. And to be very frank with you, most of the great devotees are getting something, not divine smell or anything, but they are actually acquiring some degree of mental stability and tranquility, but doing great things, good things, unselfish things. That's what actually prompts them to continue doing great things. Now, actually, Patanjali is giving a clue from like a psychologist. What he says is, for certain persons who are practicing spiritual disciplines, at some point when they do dharana, with a great concentration, if you do japa, then japa becomes deeper, then it becomes real dharana. At that stage, one may feel this. If it happens, remember, that is a natural byproduct. You may call it trash, of course, it should be got rid of to make further progress. But that actually removes the least bit of doubt that you may have in your mind. That's what Patanjali says. He is giving actually an insight into some of the experiences that many yoga practitioners may experience. Here, yoga practitioners means anyone who does japa, prayer, meditation. All of them have this kind of experience. You should remember, when we talk about yoga practice, we are not necessarily talking about somebody who is doing pranayama every day, who is actually doing standing on his head or doing all the shavasanas or siddhasanas, sarvangasanas. We are not necessarily talking about that. Yoga in this context means dharana. We are talking about dharana. In this sutras, we are discussing the results of practicing dharana. Dharana is a kind of prelude to dhyana, higher meditation. So this may be true for anyone who is practicing unselfishness, unselfish service, meditating every day, thinking of some higher ideal. When they do this, they feel inner tranquility and peace. But that may not be convincing enough. At some point, when they practice this dharana, they may get this extrasensory experiences. Remember, Patanjali doesn't say that this happens to everyone. He says this could happen. Actually, that's what he says. This is not recommended as a practice for everyone. Patanjali is giving an example of some of the vibhudis, means some of these suprasensory experiences that people may get in the practice of yoga. That's what he's talking about. This is not the main practice. Yamas and niyamas are very important. Remember. Actually, pranayama, the moment the elaborate pranayama is not compulsory. Yamas and niyamas are absolutely a must. That's important. If a person actually gets established in yamas and niyamas, if he doesn't practice this puraga, rejaga and kumbhaga and all that, absolutely no problem. And if he practices concentration, he will progress. He may experience some of this. That's what he's talking
about. But is it considered as vibhuti? I mean, this feeling, the smell, is it considered as vibhuti or just a milestone in your progression?
Actually, this is not a vibhuti. Vibhuti we already discussed. Vibhuti pada, this is samadhi pada, We are not discussing samadhi pada. But the vibhuti means results, the consequences. And vibhuti literally means some of the divine qualities, some of the extra sensory powers and qualities that you acquire through the practice of yoga. So this actually belongs to that category. So in the broad sense, you can say these are some of the results. But nobody really takes them seriously. Nobody even talks to them. Actually, to be very frank with you, for the first time in modern age, it is Swami Vivekananda who actually expounds all these in his complete works. Raj Yoga lectures. That's all. But what Vyasa wrote, Swamiji explained this. This is not a mainstream spiritual discipline that is recommended, not at all. Just as you're driving from here to Sacramento, somebody may tell you, well, on the way you will see this building, will be that building. You are not traveling to see that building. Somebody may inform you, on the way you may see that building. You may see maybe a field of almonds or whatever it is. That's all. but you are not driving, you are not aiming to see them. You may see them. That's what I said. Remember? Yeah. If you see them, make sure you are on the way to Sacramento. That's the road takes you to Sacramento. But you don't drive to see them, you know. That's it. And then you are sure that this is the road that takes you to Sacramento. Somebody had told you on this way, there are fields, there is this factory, there is that business office, maybe all these IT companies are stationed there. So somebody had told you, so you're driving, oh no, I know I'm on the right road. That's all. Okay, that's all. Is it clear?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Pranam Maharaj.
Yeah. Namaskar.
I was wondering if you could answer a question for me. I've been reading the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, specifically the chapter where he talks with Vijay Goswami.
Yeah.
And he says that the jiva is nothing but the embodiment of Satchidananda.
Yeah.
But since Maya or ego has created various upadis, he has forgotten his real self. Each upadi changes man's nature. Yeah. And then in the next paragraph he says money is also a great upadi.
Yeah. Money. Okay.
Yeah, this is a new term for me. I looked up the definition, but I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on what exactly is an upadi and what's its significance.
Actually Sri Ramakrishna is explaining the Vedic idea of jivas and Brahman, So, what is a jiva? A jiva is the reflection of the Brahman or Atman on a reflective medium. The reflective medium, is the buddhi, intellect. Mind, intellect, ego system, memory system, all together called internal organs, which constitute the reflecting medium. Now, the reflecting medium, for example, suppose you have got a vessel full of water. The quality of reflection depends upon the purity, the clarity of the water that on which the sun reflects. The quality of reflection of the sun depends upon the clarity, the purity of the water. So, if the water is muddy, dirty, the reflection may not be pure. If the water is pure, then the reflection will be pure. So also another example is like a mirror, same thing. Now, the jiva is nothing but the reflection of the Brahman. Brahman is sun, like the sun in this comparison, analogy, sun. And that sun reflects on this buddhi or mind or whatever it is, internal system. And if our vasanas, samskaras, impressions, tendencies are all pure and good, then the reflection will be more pure, will be wonderful. If our samskaras are not good, reflection will be that much impure. So that is an important point, remember. So actually the pot on which the water is kept, the water itself, these are all upadhis. Upadhi means the limiting agents. Limiting agent, that's the English translation frequently used. That pot is limited, the water is limited, but the sun that is reflected on the water pot is not limited. But reflection has to be limited. Jiva is reflection, has to be limited. If jiva practices spiritual disciplines, then it's like cleaning the reflecting medium. Let us take the example of a mirror. the quality of the reflection of a reflection in the mirror depends upon the cleanliness of the mirror. If the mirror is pure, the reflection will be pure. So if it is dirty and filthy, you take a piece of cloth, you remove the dust of the mirror, you remove the dust, make it clean, then the reflection will be pure. Every spiritual practice, either reading scriptures, meditating, or any spiritual tradition, any religious tradition, all practices are like, they can be compared to taking a piece of cloth and cleaning all the dust and filth from the mirror. Once our mind becomes pure, the Atman will reflect in all its clarity and purity under the reflecting medium. That is a upadhi, it's called upadhi. So all jivas are reflections. Jivas have got so many karmas, different karmas, accumulated through so many life cycles. To be cleaned, then the reflection will be pure. That's the idea behind. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna gives the example. In the Vedantic tradition, there are three main analogies used in the scriptures. One is Bimba Pratibimba, means the reflecting medium and the reflection, the sun and the reflecting medium. The other one is a pot, a space within the pot, and a space outside. See, outside there is space, but we have a pot. The space outside is infinite. The same space within the pot is limited. It is limited by the shape and size of the pot. But actually the space is not affected by the size of the pot. You break it, then there is what you call ghatakasha, means the akasha space limited by the pot merges with the space unlimited by the pot. Ghatakasha joins Mahakasha. Mahakasha means the great space outside. Ghatakasha means the space that is apparently limited by the ghata. You break it, it becomes one. So it's not really limitation, but apparent limitation. So another example is, if you have got a red flower and a crystal. If you bring a crystal close to the red flower, the redness of the red flower will reflect on the crystal. But if you take it away, it's gone. So there are different analogies used in the Vedantic text. Sri Ramakrishna is explaining this. Upadhi, we are all jivas, we are all reflections. So all our prayers, meditative practices are just like cleaning the reflecting medium. The cleaning of the mirror and the reflection becomes wonderful. This idea. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you for this wonderful discussion. Yeah. Namaskar. Now we have a very important item, announcement. You know, there will be no Yoga Sutra classes on 5th and 12th of September. That's because we have an online retreat. It's called Labor Day Retreat. It's an online program on 4th, 5th and 6th. That is Saturday, Sunday and Monday. Labor Day Retreat. 4th, 5th and 6th. Saturday, Sunday and Monday. September 4, 5 and 6. From 10 a.m. in the morning to 11:30 a.m. So 10 to 11:30, there will be half an hour question answer and there will be a lecture for 1 hour, and the subject is the search for immortality. The search for immortality. It is based on an episode from the Vedas. An episode from the Vedas, search for immortality. Please remember, the Labor Day Retreat is online. Labor Day Retreat is on 4th, 5th and 6th, Saturday, Sunday and Monday, based on the Vedas. And therefore we will have no Yoga Sutra class on 5th and 12th. I will be away on 12th, so this is an important announcement. Another announcement is the next Yoga Sutra class will be on September 19th, as usual from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. But I hope all of you will be able to attend this Labor Day retreat that is on 4th, 5th and 6th September, Saturday, Sunday and Monday morning, 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. You can get information from our website homepage. If you go to Google, Vedanta Society San Francisco, if you type, you will get it, or Vedanta Society of Northern California San Francisco, you can get, or just savedanta.org, you will get website, you get information. Zoom link is all given there in our website homepage. Okay.
Pardon me, Maharaj.
Yeah,
On
yeah.
the 19th of September,
Yeah.
will the starting time continue to be at 6 o'clock, or will the starting time shift to 7:30? Did I misunderstand?
No. Starting time the same, no change. No
Very
change.
good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Please remember. Thank you. So September 19th, 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Yoga Sutra class. The time remains the same. There will be no change in the time. Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.